As a beginner natural lifter, what type of rep range should you be working in to elicit optimal strength and size gains? I'm Max with Max Performance, and in today's video, that's what we're going to touch on, is pretty much like what rep range should you be working in, and there is a caveat to this, so you will want to stick through the length of the video because it's not a straight answer. It's not, this is the rep range you should be using, period. It's going to depend on what exercises you're doing, kind of what your goals are, and etc. There's some nuance built in. So, like, comment, subscribe. Let's get into it. So, we're saying beginner natural lifter, which is going to be the vast majority of people that begin, kind of like strength training, bodybuilding, powerlifting, whatever you want to call it. They're likely to be beginners. So an optimal rep range for, let's say, like a compound lift, and when I say compound lift, I'm talking about a bench press, a deadlift, some kind of squat movement, typically with a barbell, could be with a dumbbell. But those compound multi-joint movements, your big movements, the ones that are going to give you the best bang for your buck because you're hitting multiple muscle groups and they're going to elicit the greatest size and strength response. So those movements, you're going to want to typically perform them as like a beginner in a like 5 to 10 rep range style. Now, of course, you can do less, which is going to be more on the strength side of the spectrum. The closer you get to one rep, using your absolute most weight you can use for an exercise, the more specific that's going to get towards strength. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, the more reps you're adding to a set, to a certain point, the more it's going to elicit like a hypertrophy response. Now that could be anywhere from up to like 20 reps. And then once you get above 20 reps, I think you start getting more into like an endurance type stimulus, right? But for the sake of argument, let's assume that we're not doing that high of reps. So for a compound exercise, again, you're going to be wanting to do typically 5 to 10 reps with weight that's between, I don't know, 60 and 80, 85%, something like that, depending on what you can lift, for like 3 to 5 sets, or maybe like 2 to 5 sets, again, depending on, it's very contextual. But that's kind of like a good general rep range and set parameter. But 5 to 10 reps is pretty good. Now, for isolation exercises, it's going to differ quite a bit. You're going to, instead of like 5 to 10 reps, you're going to want to be doing more of a 8 to 20 reps sort of deal. And again, some isolation exercises are more isolation than others. And when I say isolation, I mean, I'm also talking about just like pulley movements in general. Like a pulley row, you might be able to get away with like 8 to 12 reps a lot more than like a tricep press down, where maybe you want to go closer to 15 to 20 reps, like a single arm tricep press down. So it's really going to, again, be somewhat contextual, but for like an isolation movement, you're really not going, for the most part, to want to get any lower than like 8 reps. You're going to start turning it more into like a compound lift, and that's typically not the point. Unless that's your goal, then okay, sure, then we'll call it a compound lift. But for exercises like pulley row, lat pull down, maybe a dip machine or something, I'd say like 8 to 15 reps typically. Something like like single arm exercises, stuff like that, it's like maybe more like 15 to 20 reps, something like that. And again, the set parameter, like 3 to 5 sets typically, I'd say, depending on how many movements you're doing and how much overall volume you're doing in your program. That's just like a general, just a general rule of thumb. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I mean, I just want to emphasize this point. The goal over time is to increase the total amount of volume you are doing in your training week, I guess you could call it, or however you're judging it. It could be a training week, training 2 weeks, training month, whatever cycle you want to call it. The overall goal to elicit more size and strength gains is to be doing more over time. Now, you can increase volume by adding sets, adding reps, adding weight, doing all of these things simultaneously. Decreasing rest time, basically doing more work over less time, would increase your total volume. So if you're doing more volume over time, you're basically giving your body a reason to adapt. You're giving your body a stimulus to adapt. And the more specific that volume is to one side of the rep range, basically the more of that response you're going to elicit. So if you're doing a lot of sets that are compound movements that are 1 to 5 reps, you're going to be eliciting more of a strength stimulus and therefore more of a strength adaptation. And if you're doing, 5 to 15 plus, you're going to be doing more of like a size stimulus, size adaptation. But another point is, like, as a beginner, you don't have to, you can basically do everything at once, and you're better off doing that because you're going to build a really solid base. So again, compound movements, 5 to 10 reps, that's going to build a really strong base. And over time, you can find ways to increase your volume. Drop sets, supersets are a great way to do this. Compound sets where you're doing like, it could be anything. It could be 2 back exercises back to back. So anyways, just that's a bit of a tangent. But again, compound movements, 5 to 10 reps for a beginner, and then isolation movements, 8 to 20 plus reps, depending on the kind of burn and pump you're looking for. So hope you enjoy the video. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. Let me know in the comments if you need a hand with your general programming. I could throw some very basic program like templates at you that would get you started ASAP. So let me know. This is Max with Max Performance. Thanks for tuning in. Later.